Welcome back. Hope you're ready for the second transmission of Frequency of the Dark. I'm Daniel Bautz. Before we move into the cornfields of small-town Ohio, like outlined in Aristotle James, I need to address a premise. I've carried this specific thing for most of my life, and it's the assumption that my interaction is not inherently desired. I keep to myself because my perception is that I am either unimportant or unwanted in a space. I only share when I am engaged first. I seldom make the first move towards others unless I feel I have something of undeniable value. Let me make this clear, this is not a confession of shyness or declaration that I'm an introvert. It's an explanation of my process. Because I stay on the periphery, I have spent decades as a witness. I'm a people watcher, and I watch how people handle quiet, how they shift and move, and laugh just to fill a pause. They can't stand still. Tonight we're going to look at how the habit of observation helps build a world, and what happens when the silence finally demands an answer. So we're starting tonight with an excerpt from the Phantom Funeral Coach that defines the cost of being a witness. I'm reading it because this kind of captures the exact moment that the observer, like myself, is forced to become a participant. It's the physical reality of that first move. When you no longer can stay silent, that option is gone. I've seen what comes out of the dark, so it made no sense to me why I sat in the dark alone with an injured stranger deep in the woods. My hands sticky from his blood, my eyes peeled wide, watching the inky dark at the bottom of that narrow valley. The longer we sat, the closer the evil inched, ready to swallow me whole. My throat and mouth dried out while sweat dripped down my face and back, my finger thrumming beneath the bandage with every heartbeat, waiting for Brian to come back with help. So to be clear, I've talked about being the observer and being the wallflower and observing other people. This is one of the things I want to stress. That observation allows me to write people and characters that aren't me. My characters are the result of those times that I spent in the corner of rooms watching. Take Brannigan Rafferty from Life is in the Blood. He's a social climber. He's an extrovert. I know Brannigan because I've sat and watched men like him trying to get in a place of power. How they handle a pause in a conversation, how they use touch to bring people to their attention, how they shift their weight to appear larger in a room. As an example of me illustrating this character and his motivations through actions, here's an excerpt from Life is in the Blood. Brannigan flashed his pearly grin at the receptionist. She stared at him, deaf to his words. Miss Torborg, I am here to see Mr. Clark, if you don't mind. Oh no, I don't mind at all. She rested her chin in her hands and gazed at Rafferty. How good of you. Let him know I'm here? His tone firm, indicating irritation. Right away, she popped up from her seat, walked to the door directly behind her, and stuck her head in. She smiled, opening the door, and motioned for Brannigan to enter. In the oak-paneled office, an older gentleman sat behind a desk. Cigar in his mouth, a half-full glass of bourbon, Robert Clark read. He rubbed his thick, peppered mustache, the kind that knocked the crumbs off cookies. Mr. Clark, here it is, and a month early, I may add. Brannigan beelined to the desk and slapped the box on the dark cherry wood like a proud child. He waited for Mr. Clark to respond. Brannigan is taking control. He's seizing the moment, and he's using what he perceives as other people's want of what he offers and to allow him to climb the social strata. Then there's Uncle Raymond. He represents an entirely different person, character. He represents that universal human craving for connection, something I've watched also from the sideline. I watch how people handle the rituals of engagement, and Raymond is a master of it. To set this up, he is entering in a courthouse with his nephew and his dog. A Richland County sheriff greeted us as we walked in. "Hi, John." Raymond extended his right hand to complete the greeting ritual. When the officer gripped his hand, Raymond patted the officer on the back. "Everything's still good on the home front?" "Yes, sir, Raymond." He turned his attention to me and pointed in AJ's direction. "Don't worry, John. He's licensed, up to date on his shots, and won't be a nuisance. So all is well?" "Raymond, it sure is. Thank you. And if someone says something about the dog, I didn't see you." "Absolutely, John. You keep in touch." Raymond looked over his shoulder and gave me a wink. This is a people person. This is somebody who is concerned about other people and knows everybody. And I'm sure we've all known somebody like that in our course of our lifetime. It's not me, but I know quite a few people who are like that because they know me, not the other way around. There is a specific kind of pressure that exists in a small town, and it's something that is paramount in the story of Aristotle James. It's the feeling of being watched by eyes you've known your entire life. Living in a place where everyone knows everyone, the landscape isn't just dirt and crops and buildings. It's basically a map of reputations. When I look back at Lucas, Ohio, with this entire school system on a hill or its single stoplight, I do see a very comfortable familiarity. To the outsider, it's a place you just kind of pass through and drive right on down the highway. To those of us who grew up there, the rolling hills and fields, well, in a way, they're a stage. There's absolutely nowhere to hide because the community knows you, your family, and they probably even know the names of your pets. So when something happens in that familiar setting, the betrayal is almost inescapable. There's no place for you to run, and there is no place for you to hide. There's a little example of this in Aristotle James at the crux of the problem in the book. So this is Aristotle talking to Officer Suter. "It's not the whole truth I offered, in hopes the cop would allow me to share my side of the story. Maybe after hearing my story, he'd let us leave and AJ and I would be fine. I sat next to his son, a friend and classmate, on the school bus, and we spent the night at each other's houses several times. Son, if your story doesn't include this porch, a dead cat, and your dog, all of which I see here, I'll know you're lying." He smiled a weak smile, betraying his mixed emotions. Sheriff Suter always judged with fairness and compassion. In our next excerpt, we see the breaking point of logic. So in a small town, you rely on that familiar we talked about earlier to keep you safe. But when the fog rolls in and brings something translucent and impossible with it, your role as an observer basically becomes a burden. You are now the bearer of the truth no one else sees. Aristotle, it may help if you apologize to her. The mayor's suggestion sent a shiver up my spine. My son's not going anywhere near that old hag. My dad's objection caught the two gentlemen by surprise. They sat holding their coffee mugs halfway from the table, away from their mouths, slack-jawed and wide-eyed. "Well, Roy, why the heck not?" "Because, Smitty, someone ran my son off the road today and almost killed him, and I'm pretty sure I know who did it." "And who's that?" "Do you know anyone else who drives a 1930s French sports car?" The atmosphere at this point became tense with unbearable silence. The befuddled room composed itself. It's because people know each other that they can talk like this, and also they can infer a lot about a situation without investigation. Something else that comes with this kind of back room against the wall observation that's been basically my life. You learn that people speak differently, and dialogue depends on the character. Some speak to gain, others speak to connect. And when you're writing, don't just talk. Write with the reason why they chose that specific moment to break the silence. I sat on my bunk, waiting to hear my watch beep. Brian looked at me and said, "Sorry about your finger. Does it hurt?" "Nah, it's good." I shot him a confused look. "Why are you sorry?" Brian looked at his feet, the crease in the roof of the tent, anywhere but at me. "You know, right, before you cut your finger, I was thinking, nah, never mind." "No, you have to tell me. You can't start and not finish." "Well, I thought it would be cool if someone's blood would make the phantom funeral coach show up and you cut yourself." "I don't know. I guess it's stupid. But I feel like me thinking that made you cut yourself. Don't worry about it. It's not your fault." "Thanks, Aristotle. I needed to hear that." This is the moment where the internal pressure of a witness meets the external reality of the unknown. I'm reading this because it highlights the sensory betrayal of the dark, where the shadows of the moon and the shadows of the fog cross, creating a million ghosts out of thin air. It's a study in the physical toll of witnessing, the reminder to simply breathe because the mind can no longer process what the eyes are seeing. Another owl hoot, followed by an incredible mournful wail. The hoof strikes became louder. The fog rolled at a slow pace, blanketing the valley floor. The fog's eerie glow cast over the hillsides, climbing almost to where we lay. I sat breathless, anticipating what would appear from the fog. The shadows crawled up the hills from the haze, competing with the shadows falling down the hills from the bright moon overhead. The shadows crossed, making it hard to judge what you saw with certainty. It was like the shadows of a million people coming and going. "Breathe," I reminded myself. "Breathe." Brighter and brighter the light intensifies as the clatter of horse hooves striking the solid earth of the valley increased. I stood on my stone perch to see more, pulling my camera out. Frozen in disbelief, never did I take my eyes from the creeping, glowing fog. A form materialized from the shapeless phosphorescence. And so you see, the phantom coach keeps rolling through the woods. My work is an attempt to record that movement. Whether I'm in the head of a social climber like Brannigan or a boy like Aristotle who's terrified to make the first move, I'm using my memory of the silence to ground the story. Don't need lucky charms. I just need to remember the weight of an attic door or the way the birds stop singing when something is coming. The frequency is fading, but the observation never stops. Next week, we'll move into Winter Walker and look at how the cold changes the rules of the dark. Thank you for engaging. I'm glad I had something worth saying tonight. So stay with the signal, like, comment, and subscribe, or let the silence find you. Either way, the coach is coming.